Whether it's cars, comics, video games, or violins, there's a little geek in all of us. It's time to give your geek a voice. It's time for Geek Therapy. Here's your host, Johnny Hamburger.
What's up, chickens? That was a weird voice. Welcome to Geek Therapy. Actually, it wasn't a geek. It wasn't a weird voice. It's a character that one of my favorite cartoonists created. His name is Brad Neely. I can't, in good conscience, recommend anybody go out and look him up. Because he gets a little saucy. It's a little bit mature, but in the stupidest way. Actually, he has a series that's called The Professor Brothers, and there's actually one of the cartoons he made, one of the episodes he made, which is called the TA Interview. So the Professor Brothers are interviewing for the position of a new teacher's assistant. Anyways, there's a quote in there that I've actually kind of applied to my life and have had reasonable success with. So there's a quote in the episode of the TA Interview where he says, "Then I came to the crossroads. I'm always coming to freaking crossroads." But he doesn't say freaking. He says the actual F words. Anyways, "But I bring my knocks. Where are your knocks, Gabe?" So life has these crossroads, and if you bring your knocks to the crossroads, you're going to be fine. Your binoculars. Bring your binoculars to the crossroads. Make a decision in life. Let's try to look down each road a little bit. Try to make the best possible decision we can. So that little phrase has stuck with me for 10 years. I guess I first saw the cartoon in 2007. I think that's when it was created, in 2007. So I'm always bringing my knocks to the crossroads. Any crossroads in my life, I'm looking through my knocks. What's down each road? So anyways, looking down the road has got me a radio show, which is what I wanted, which is wonderful. So off that tangent, today when I got into work, James Simpson of What's on Tap Radio was recording his show. So as he was wrapping up, he asked me to come take some pictures, which is great. I've done that a few times. It's fun. But he's like, "Let me hook you up with a couple beers." I was like, "Of course, that's great." So I got a couple beers. Now, I said something to him in the room full of beer geeks, because let's just be real, that's what you are. That if you're really into craft brews and microbrewing and you're into that whole culture, you're a geek about beer. So I mentioned to that room full of beer geeks, I said, I'm gonna toss this in the fridge for a while, knowing that I would get some sort of response. So, if you can't. A way to piss off microbrewers is to even hint at drinking an ice cold beer. It's well known among microbrewers that ice cold, that you don't just automatically assume that every beer has to be drinked ice cold. Usually when brands are marketing ice cold beer, that's to cover up the fact that it's a crappy beer, that it's not really a great beer. So, you got your Bud Lights and Coors Lights, and it's always advertised ice cold. Craft beer and microbrews, the temperature is important. At what temperature you drink the beer is critical to enjoying the beer to the fullest. Some beers need to be drank at room temperature, which is slightly warm. I usually don't enjoy those types of beers too much, but that's just because it's taken me a long time to build up a taste for beer. I only recently have begun to enjoy Guinness, like really enjoy Guinness. I don't drink it too often, but it used to be I would stay away from the dark beers or the more bitter beers or the more flavorful beers because my palate just wasn't there yet. I was kind of a late bloomer, I guess, with drinking beer. So anyway, as I mentioned, how long should I put this in the fridge? And a huge argument just erupted about do I or don't I put this beer in the fridge? I wound up putting the beer in the fridge. The consensus that the advice was basically go throw it in the fridge. It's fine. But yeah, here something the average layperson may not know is you can't just drink beers at willy-nilly temperatures around beer snobs. They'll light you up for it. There's a proper temperature for each beer. And just to assume that every beer you drink should be ice cold is a noob thought. That's straight up. That'll get you lit up. That'll get you thrown out. You can't just drink any and all beer at ice cold temperatures at 33 degrees. No. Huge sin. Cardinal sin of the local brewing scene. Don't just assume it all should be ice cold. So that was fun. I got 2 beers. That was the end of that story. I got 2 beers that are in the fridge right now that I will drink later. That came from beer geeks themselves over at What's on Tap Radio. Check them out. I have been looking into, you guys are probably at this point, this is show number 5, probably sick of hearing my voice alone. My single solitary voice. And that was kind of planned. I wanted to do the first few shows at least, all by my lonesome. Stretch my vocal cords out, get my wings, see if I can float these segments. I just knocked something over. See if I can float these segments for 10 minutes at a time. Flowing stream of consciousness for about 42 minutes. Straight, just me. It was intentional. But now, I know I'm sick of hearing my own voice, so I am actively looking into bringing guests on the show. Somebody I've reached out to, which I would love to get him on the show. His name is John Hill. He's a professional skater, and he's awesome. And when I recently got back into skating, I watched a lot of his YouTube videos, him and Aaron Cairo over at Braille Skateboarding. Those guys are awesome. Skating is so different nowadays in 2017 than when it was when I was growing up. It was always cool, but man, skating has just gotten so awesome. Like the skating community has gotten so unbelievably supportive and cool with each other. Skating back in the day used to be pretty wrought with D-bags, and pretty territorial, and people. There was no building up of other skaters. Not that I saw. If you came to a skate park and you weren't very good, you would get laughed out of the skate park. Now the skate community seems awesome. Just seems so supportive of each other, and it's guys like Aaron Cairo and John Hill and all those cats really just supporting each other, and skating has gotten awesome, and I've gotten back into skating, and I have slammed on the concrete so hard recently, but it felt good to get bloody. Felt good to get my old bones hitting the pavement. Anyways, we'll be right back. More Geek Therapy to come. Stick around.
A topic for you for a future Geek Therapy.
Oh, there, Eric Sharp interrupting me, but I'll leave that in. Stick around. More Geek Therapy to come. How have I gotten 5 shows deep into Geek Therapy without talking about RC aircraft, RC cars, RC boats? How have I not touched base yet with the radio-controlled community? It's high time I started discussing that in my experience with RC electronics, which at 33 years old is even more fun than when it was getting a remote control car when I was 12. Technology has come such a long way. In RC hobby vehicles, have just gotten awesome. Obviously, I mean, with the rise of drones, pun intended, it's just gotten so cool. The things they're doing with in the RC hobbyist community are amazing. But before I get into that, I need to give you my contact information again, of course. geektherapy@iheartmedia.com. That's the email. geektherapy@iheartmedia.com. If you're an RC hobbyist, what do you fly? What do you drive? Or what do you float? Tell me about it. Also, Instagram, Geek Therapy Radio on Instagram. Follow me there. I just uploaded a picture from this past weekend where I took the DeLorean to go pick up a Commodore 64. So that it doesn't get any more retro, any more 80s than that. Getting in a DeLorean and going to pick up a quote-unquote new Commodore 64. That it doesn't get any more 80s than that. The only thing missing to make it even more 80s would have been a mountain of cocaine. But that's not how I roll. And that ain't happening. That's never happening. So it was a pretty fun weekend. So RC hobby stuff. I mean, to say when I got into it, that's not quite as important. Everybody growing up, no matter your walk of life, everybody had a remote control car or something growing up. I remember my friend John had a remote control hovercraft, which was awesome. I used to go over to his house just to play with his remote control hovercraft and blast that thing down the hallways, over the carpet, over the tile, over puddles of water outside. It was so fun. Hovercraft are so difficult to control. It's not like a car where you can just point it where you want to go. It's very, very, very difficult to control. Speaking of difficult to control, more recently in life, something clicked in my brain. Some little interest got sparked. Some little geek thing sparked, zapped my geek antenna. And I said, what the heck? I'm going to order a remote control helicopter. Not a drone, not a quadcopter, which, by the way, when people refer to drones, you're popularly referring to a quadcopter, a full-rotored aircraft. Drone, by definition, is something that's autonomous, that doesn't require human intervention, whatever. So I bought a helicopter. I bought a few of them. RC helicopters, not drones. And the reason why I say not drones, not quadcopters, is because before I got the RC helicopter, I had no idea they would be so difficult to fly. I mean, you go on YouTube or you see movies or whatever of people flying around remote control helicopters, and they're flying so smoothly and they're hovering so daintily and so rock solid. That requires an ungodly amount of skill, lots of flight time to even be able to hover in place. If you've never done it, is impossible. In fact, when I got my first RC heli, I thought it was broken. It was so hard to handle, so hard to fly. I thought for sure there was something wrong with the helicopter, or something wrong with the remote control, or something wrong with it in some way. That I was about to send it back or send an angry email. Nope, I just didn't have the experience. It takes a long time to master flying an RC heli, and even now I haven't mastered it, but I can keep it in the air. The movements you make with the controller are so fine and so minute. If you've grown up playing video games or whatnot, or if you even played one video game in your life, you're mashing your stick back and forth to get the character, to move on the screen, to get the vehicle to move on the screen. In real life with an RC heli, just the most tiny, most finite moves the helicopter wildly. So you need to retrain how your brain thinks and how your brain operates and how your fingers work to make these super precise, super fine movements with the sticks. That's the only way you can fly, and you're going to break your first heli. That's just, you're going to break it and break it and break it and fix it and fix it and fix it and break it and break it and break it until you can even barely keep the thing under control. And I did not know that going into flying RC helis. And again, I'm not an expert at it, but it's just something that I was geeking out about a couple years ago, and I decided to sort of get into it. And it's been worthwhile. It's become a source of great entertainment and joy to me to occasionally break out the heli and fly it around a little bit. And the reason why it's enjoyable is because it does take skill. It's not something you just pick up and automatically be able to do. It's like picking up an instrument. You can't just see a guitar and then automatically play the guitar. It takes a lot of time to get decent at. And that discovery and that learning process is more of a joy than actually being good at it. You know, speaking about guitars, I derive more joy from learning a new lick, from the actual learning of the new lick, to when I know the new lick, to where I can play the new lick in my sleep. That's not where the joy, of course that brings me great pleasure, but the actual joy of learning it is where I derive all my satisfaction from, where I derive most of the satisfaction from. So anyways, learning to fly the heli, even with all the crashes and burns, was satisfying, because now I can actually get the heli in the air, and I can keep it in the air, and I can actually make it go relatively where I want. Like I said, I'm not an expert, but I understand the hobby now well enough to be able to reasonably fly a heli, enough to get enjoyment out of it. And it's just funny because when I first got my first RC heli, like I said, I thought I was broken. What was really broken was my brain. I didn't connect the dots that it takes very fine movements to keep the thing under control, and to actually hover a heli is unimaginably hard. And when you watch YouTube videos, YouTube is such a great resource for learning new things, for tutorials and whatnot. A lot of the videos they just try to get you to the point where you hover, and they say, okay, practice hovering, like 20 minutes a day or whatever. Don't do anything else. Don't try to move back or forward or up or down. Get the heli up in the air, get it, 4 or 5 feet off the ground, whatever, and just practice hovering. Practicing hovering in one spot will teach you so many of the motor skills you need to be a successful RC pilot. And it doesn't seem like that. It's like, in the Karate Kid, where Daniel-san has to balance on one leg and do the kicks, balance on that wooden post at the beach and do the kicks. Like, what possible benefit could you get from just standing on one foot balancing on a stump? A lot. Like 90% of your fine motor skills is going to come from just being still. Just practice being still. So that was my journey with RC aircraft. I have not flown any RC planes yet. I'm kind of scared to. Well, I'm not scared to. I just don't trust my eyes. I have these big, thick Coke bottle glasses. I can see just fine, but I can't see far away. And the whole part of the RC airplanes game is knowing your orientation in the air. Are you looking at the tail? Are you looking at the front? Are you looking at the right wing or left wing? Knowing where you are in 3D space while the object is moving at high speeds. If you can't see far away, which I can't see so well far away, let alone know what orientation the aircraft is, I don't know if I'm flying towards me or away from me. That's a hurdle that I know that I'll have to get over to fly an RC heli. It's also the reason I don't play baseball much anymore. I mean, I still love to play baseball, but a few years ago, my brother was having a birthday party in which we all went out to play baseball. Not softball, baseball. All of us guys who grew up playing baseball and varsity baseball. I played varsity baseball. But probably didn't know that about me, but I did. So I was like, yeah, man, I'll go out there. I'll go out to center field, whatever. This is going to be just like old times. I couldn't see the freaking ball. I couldn't see the pitches. I couldn't see, like, the ball would hit the bat, and I would just stand there. I don't know where the ball's going. I can't see that tiny little thing. So I moved infield. I moved to third base, which is better suited for my eyes now. Did just fine. But standing out there in the outfield, there was a couple hits, click of the bat. We were using wooden bats because, again, we thought we were all that in a bag of chips. So the ball would hit the bat, and I would just throw my hands up. I don't know where it is. And it would plop like 10 feet in front of me. Oh, there it is. And I would throw it, to the infield. Throw it to the cutoff man, whatever. Try to gun the guy out on home plate, which my arm doesn't work so well anymore. It does work. It just hurts so bad. I played baseball for so long, and have gunned so many turkeys out at home plate from the outfield that my shoulder clicks now. I can throw a baseball as hard as I can, maybe 2 or 3 times, before I can't throw like that anymore. My shoulder has a click. There's an actual click in my tendons or my bones that prevents me from playing baseball hardcore anymore. And it's something people warn you about when you're growing up as a teenager and you're getting good at a sport. They'd be like, watch out, Johnny, you can't use that arm like that forever. Oh, pish posh. Yes, I can. I'll always be able. This cannon's going to be great for my entire life. I'll be 90 years old throwing 90 miles an hour. You just see. Nope. There are professional athletes my age, obviously, and older, who have taken better care of their arms and are still playing professional sports. But again, I never set out to be a professional baseball player. That's never what I really wanted in my life. I enjoyed playing baseball. I enjoyed playing varsity baseball. I enjoyed traveling with the team. I love baseball. I still love baseball. But man, I shot everything out of this cannon. By the time I was 20 years old, it was done. This arm, I maybe got two or three blasts, left in it at any given day. But then it's gotten to the point where I'll play catch with my brother or something like that, play catch with a friend, and I kind of baby it. If I'm not really throwing hard, I'll baby it. There's a different motion you make with your arm when you're throwing a ball. They kind of throw it across my chest a little bit to baby my shoulder, baby that rotation of the shoulder. Anyways, long segment. We'll be back with more Geek Therapy. Send me an email, geektherapy@iheartmedia.com. That's geektherapy@iheartmedia.com. Geek Therapy Radio on Instagram. Stay right here. We'll be right back. More Geek Therapy. It's gonna get geeky.
If you really like to rock the funky beats, rock the funky beats. If you really like to rock the funky beats, rock the funky beats. If you really like to rock the funky beats, rock the funky beats.
What's up, party people? My geeks! Okay, please don't change the channel. I promise I won't do that anymore. This segment. I'll probably do that more later on. There's subsequent shows. You can't tell me what to do. Well, you kind of can tell me what to do with your ratings. You can very much so tell me what to do based on whether people are listening or not. Anyways, I've got the beer that James Simpson gave me. It's called Moose Drool Brown Ale from Big Sky Brewing Company in Missoula, Montana. No, they're not paying me to do this spot. I don't even know if this beer is good or not yet. It's probably going to be good. Let me first test this out here by seeing if I can twist off the top. Is it a twist off? No. Ow! That is not a twist off. Usually good beer isn't a twist off. I should have known. Let's open this up here. Ooh. Check out the Foley work. Foley is how you record sound effects for TV and movies and whatnot. Now you know, sound geeks. I've got a bottle opener on my keychain. I'm not an alcoholic, but you need a bottle. Everyone needs a bottle opener on their keys. Come on. It's not just for beer. I open my Mexican Cokes with it. You know, Mexican Cokes come in the glass bottle, and they use the real sugar. That's not a twist off. By the way, I just tossed the cap into the trash can across the room. First try. Swish. 3 points and 1. Although I don't know who just fouled me. But somehow I wound up on the floor. And I haven't even had one sip of alcohol yet. What am I even talking about? First, let's try a sip. I'm moving around so much you could probably hear the chair. Let me try a sip of this Moose Drool Brown Ale. Let me get the aroma in my nose. I'm my own beer sommelier for the evening. Let's see. That's pretty good. Has a good bite to it going down. It's almost tart, but in a good way. Let's have another sip. Get some air in there with it. Good. It gets my geek. Actually, I'm not going to give it the geek seal of approval. If anybody wants to get the geek seal of approval from me, you're going to have to give me some ducats. Give me some cheddar, some cheese, some coins. But if I was going to give it the geek seal of approval, it would. Oh, geez. So earlier I mentioned that over the weekend I went and bought a Commodore 64. For those geeks out there who don't know what the Commodore 64 is, or for any youths listening, the Commodore 64 was an 8-bit computer that came out in 1982. There was the VIC-20 that came out before the Commodore 64, but the Commodore 64 it's still to this day holds the world record for highest selling individual model of computer ever. How many millions of units sold around the world? You might think, well, how does it hold a record? There's, MacBooks and Macs and stuff like that. No, the single highest selling individual model. That means they made one model, one specific model, and they sold millions of it. Still holds the world record. But I never had one growing up. Some of my friends had one. My friend Daniel had one. My friend Adam had one. And always kind of gave them crap for it because we had Nintendos and Segas and even, 486 Packard Bell computers, PCs, and these guys were still rocking the Commodore 64. But I never had one growing up, and so I wanted one, and I got one, and I want to give a shout out to the eBay seller who sold it to me, he lives up in Spring. So I was able to save on delivery. I just went up there and picked it up in the DeLorean, like I mentioned. In case you're interested in Commodore 64s, I'll mention his eBay screen name, and I'll just say first, the reason why I went with him is they were a little bit more expensive. It wasn't that bad. It was a little over $100, but the detail, this guy in the time and effort he puts into restoring these is worth the extra, $30 versus other Commodores you might see on eBay or might see on Craigslist or wherever, where it says tested and turns on. Well, that doesn't mean squat. That means it can get power and the LED turns on. That doesn't mean it's a good version. This guy goes through basically every switch in every capacitor, every chip, and he tests them all and he even replaces them with new chips, new remanufactured chips. So what he told me is he said he knows that a lot of people buying from him, this might be their first experience with a Commodore 64. So he wants to make sure everything works and he wants to make sure their experience is good. And I said, that's awesome. That's why I'm willing to pay a few extra bucks to get one that is, one of the best examples in the world, most reliable Commodore 64s in the world, because they're over 30 years old. They're well over 30, 35-ish years old now. and 35-year-old electronics from the 80s, that's a lot of wear and tear that can go into them, especially personal computers from that era. So I got a really good one. His eBay name is Adoreware on eBay. I'll spell it out: ADOREWARE. Again, ADOREWARE. He didn't give me. I need to disclose this for legal reasons for the FCC. I paid for it myself. He didn't give this to me. There's no secret shady stuff going on in here. I bought it myself. I'm just giving. He's a buddy now, so I'm giving him a shout out. ADOREWARE, Adoware on eBay. So if you're looking at if you want an old Commodore 64, he's an electrical engineer, and he basically restores them to almost better than new condition. Again, I didn't have one growing up, so the intricacies in the known failure points he was telling me about, I had no idea of because I never had one. Let me take a sip of beer real quick. Anyways, he said, for instance, the run stop button, the run stop key had a history of getting finicky, I guess. You'd really need to mash it. So he went in and replaced the switch. So now it's basically feather. It's like a hair trigger, which is good. So any known keys that had issues where you really needed to slam them, he went through and replaced them. And I appreciate that because I've never had a Commodore 64, and I just want everything to work. And it does work. And it's glorious. I've got it plugged into... Did I put it on my Geek Therapy Radio Instagram? I think I did. I plugged it into an old CRT. Well, an old CRT. This is probably from 2005. But it looks awesome. The Commodore 64 has a built-in RF modulator, so you don't need any sort of conversion boxes to go to the antenna input, the coax input on a TV. You just plug in. It's an RCA output from the Commodore 64. You just get an adapter that goes to a coax input of your TV. By adapter, I just mean it adapts one cable to the next. There's no actual electronics inside of it adapting the signal. But plugs right from the Commodore into the TV. Oh, and it's so nostalgic. Typing on the keyboard, making my own stupid little programs. I'm going to have a lot of fun with the Commodore 64. There is a thing I ordered for it from Spain. Back in the day, programs used to be saved onto audio cassettes. And basically what it was is just this audio signal that's, if you play it back in a regular boombox, it sounds horrible. It sounds like a robot getting murdered. But that's what the data was stored as. So you'd press play on the tape deck and you set the Commodore 64 to listen for the program material. And that's how you loaded up programs. So what I bought off of eBay from Spain, from a different guy who I won't mention, it basically it adds an audio input into the Commodore 64. So what you can do is you have these data sound files on your phone or wherever. And so what you do is you tell your Commodore to listen, and then you have your cell phone or your MP3 player plugged into the Commodore 64, and you press play on your device there, and you set the Commodore to listen to it, and there you go. You got your program running. It's amazing. And admittedly, I don't have it yet. I'm just super excited to get it and to nerd out. Is anybody as big a geek as I am? Does anybody get so excited and goosebumps at the thought of using even retro technology? Of firing up an old Nintendo, of firing up an old Atari 2600. That blows my geek circuits. I get so excited about that kind of stuff. That's what the show's about. Getting excited about whatever your geek thing is. So that's a perfect segue into me saying, send me your geek thing. Tell me what you're geeking out about. Geek Therapy at geektherapy@iheartmedia.com. Again, geektherapy@iheartmedia.com. That's how you reach me. And that's how you'll tell me about what you're nerding out about. Let's get passionate about it. Let's hold each other's hands and gaze into each other's nerd eyes and talk about your geek thing. Maybe over beers. I'll have a beer. You can have some wine. We'll discuss. What did this radio show just turn into? Anyways, more Geek Therapy to come. Let's nerd out. Let's nerd out. Let's nerd out. Let's do the final segment right. Push our glasses up. Get real geeky with it. I'll be right back. I'm Johnny Hamburger. I'm not going anywhere. Please don't go anywhere yourself. It's going to be fun. I promise you. Might talk about comics coming back. We'll see. More Geek Therapy to come.
I got you stuck off the realness.
I'm on the edge of glory. Well, I heard that song in the hallway. Well, welcome back to Geek Therapy. Why can't I just do a normal freaking intro? Why oh why? And why can I not stop saying the word freaking so freaking much? Welcome back to Geek Therapy. I am Johnny Hamburger, and my buddy Eric Sharp sent me a very interesting article. Eric Sharp, by the way, you can hear his voice at the beginning of every episode of Geek Therapy. He does my voiceover for me. So, thank you, Eric. I love you more than a friend, but less than a lover. And that's all subject to, well, never mind. He sent me this article. I said we're going to talk about comics, and we are going to talk about comics, as it turns out. I'm covering all the bases this week on Geek Therapy. Get it? Baseball? Like I talked about earlier? I'm hitting an in-the-park home run here. So, comics. It's this interesting idea that has arisen, this trend, if you will, and this is going to kind of get ethical here. Retailers are noticing a drop in sales since at least Marvel Comics has started to introduce more diverse characters. And what I mean is turning Iron Man into a teenage black girl, or adding making Miss Marvel a Muslim teenage girl. And those types of things, just adding diversity to the Marvel lineup, which is great, by the way. You know, making superheroes reflect, you know, those in the world, the actual people in the world. That's wonderful. But here's the rub, I think. The decrease in sales is not because people are racist or have something against diversifying characters in the Marvel Universe. The issue is familiarity. For instance, making Iron Man into Iron Woman, making Iron Man a teenage black girl, it's not... People are not stopping... The sales are not going down because Iron Man is now a black girl. The sales are going down. It's kind of for the security blanket effect. People are used to seeing Tony Stark. They want Tony Stark as Iron Man, and I get that. So once that familiarity is gone, it doesn't matter that it's a black teenage girl that's now taken on the role of Iron Man. It's that it's not Tony Stark anymore. You know, and it's so to paint this as such a racial issue. You know, I just run a geek show. I'm not getting political about it or anything like that, but to me, it's just because it's the fan base is very familiar with a very set image of who each hero is, whether they're a man or a woman. You know, Wonder Woman, for instance, if they changed Wonder Woman into a teenage black boy, what? It wouldn't be because that it's the gender and race has been altered. It's because it's not the same character anymore. That's how I see it. So in the long run, I think it's fine. It's absolutely wonderful to introduce diverse characters into the comic book universe. new characters, new superheroes that start from the get-go. If, for instance, Miss Marvel being a teenage Muslim girl, that's fine. But as long as it's a new character, as long as it's a new, complete story to get involved with that character, taking Tony Stark and changing race and gender, that's alienating an entire fan base. It has nothing to do, like I said, it has nothing to do with the race or the gender. It's not Tony Stark anymore. So it's hard to get people interested in a completely new character, especially if that completely new character is taking the role of an established character. That's crazy. And I understand why those comics aren't flying off the shelves. It's a familiarity thing. Oh, Tony Stark, there's no Tony Stark anymore, so it's not Iron Man anymore. And I understand that part. So, to me, if you're interested, diversity is absolutely wonderful, of course, as long as they are new characters, brand new characters, not Iron Man 2.0, just a new entire character with their new story. Don't make Spider-Man a completely different person. Like, it's Spider-Man. People are familiar with Spider-Man, and changing up that formula, that of course readers might not be so interested in spending $1. It's not a familiar Spider-Man anymore. But if you create a completely new character, like what's another formidable bug, like praying mantis girl, that's one thing. That would be great, and that might get an entirely new fan base and make praying mantis girl a black woman. That would bring in female black readership, or even black readership altogether, which it would be great. That's what you want. You want to keep selling as much comics as possible and empowering different groups of people who don't always get so much recognition in popular culture. That's 100%, 1000% great. But to paint decreasing comic book sales as a racial issue is just a little bit BuzzFeedy. It's a little bit fake newsy. That's not really the issue. You're connecting two dots that there's really not a connection there. It's just readers are not familiar with Tony Stark being a woman, for instance, Iron Man being a woman. It's not real. But a new character being a woman or being a minority, fantastic. Go for it. Do it. That's wonderful. So I don't really read too many comics, but yeah, I don't know. What do you guys think about it? That's just my opinion of it. You know, I think people make a big deal out of things that aren't really a big deal, or look so deep into things trying to create a controversy when no controversy really exists. You're trying to connect two dots that aren't even on the same page together. But as the comic book store owners have also said, they love the fact that they have more diverse clientele coming into the stores. That's a good thing. You are appealing to a much larger demographic of potential buyers. Now you just got to keep them. You got to make them keep spending money. Somebody else brought up the point that they don't care about the diversifying of comic book characters. They care about the unoriginality and rehashing these stories over and over and over again. For instance, with Spider-Man, somebody wrote in a comment, it's not about diversity. It's about, I'm tired of reading Uncle Ben getting killed 355,000 times. We know Uncle Ben got killed. Stop rehashing that story over and over and over again. Anyways, that's the end of geek parody for the week. Geek therapy for the week. I'm Johnny Hemberger. This last segment got a little bit. There's a lot of meat on this bone. A lot of meat on those geek bones. So what do you think about it? Geek therapy at iHeartMedia.com. Email me. Tell me what you think. Geek Therapy at iHeartMedia.com. Follow me on Instagram, Geek Therapy Radio on Instagram. That's Geek Therapy Radio on Instagram. Have a great week, everybody. I love you all. Like I say in every show, like I just try to empower you. Please Reach out to somebody, tell you love them. And equally as important, when somebody tells you that they love you, believe it. You are worthy of being loved. People aren't going to say they love you because you are unworthy of love. You are worthy of love. Know your worth and go out there and conquer your world. You can do it. You're smart. You're loved. You have all the tools you need to go out there and have just a great life for yourself. So please know that you're loved. Please know that you're worthy. And come back here next week. Find the podcast, kprcradio.com. Just look for Geek Therapy. You'll find it. Other than that, I'll see you next week. Have a good week, my geeks.